Greetings, friends. The first anti-lockdown protest occurred, I believe, in the last Saturday of April 2020, because the first one I attended was May 2nd, that Saturday. The cause of the protest was anti-lockdown. That was the main reason at the time. Some of the people there would have been aware of the other things coming, like the stabbies and Vaseline, passports, and this kind of thing. But it was an anti-lockdown protest originally, because that was what was happening at the time. It was lockdowns. A few weeks into the lockdowns, it was fresh. That's what was happening, and that's what continued for so long, especially in Toronto, one of the most longest lockdown places on earth. But even here, it's recently loosened up. I do believe lockdowns will return, but right now, a lot of stuff is open, but there's still restrictions, still mask mandates and things like that. Even when the rest of Canada has been loosening mask mandates, Southern Ontario, or at least Toronto, I can tell you, well, we're always going to be behind everyone else. This is pretty much one of the worst places in the liberal Western world to live. Now, that protest, obviously, the anti-lockdown protest, started to attract people who raised awareness about the stabbies. And that's fine, because it is a connected issue. But then there was always other people and other leadership groups vying to control the movement from the beginning. Life coaches, Vlad Sobolek, I believe that's his name, of Hugs Over Masks. I believe he was like a life coach or something. Chris Guy, bodybuilder, tattooed all over his body. I don't know if he was a life coach, but similar charismatic guy. Lamont Daigle of whatever background, who knows really, but shady organization. The Line, so you've got the Line, and then Hugs Over Masks, and then just these other groups that were all shady and egotistical individuals. They never came around and got to know you. Let me put it that way. Because what I would do at these protests is I would have my sign there originally for months, but I would be trying to get my message out to the public. The other half of the protest, they just like to listen to the public speaking. So I found that the good people who want to talk to me, they naturally gravitate to where I am, or at least likewise, I'll find similar people in this area who are still committed protesters. I no longer, do that sort of thing anymore, but that's how it was for many months. And there's always been disillusionment and disagreement, but a lot of people didn't like the way how these corrupt, fake, fed organizations, if they really were, to some extent probably. I'm not saying that those so-called leaders were feds, but if anything, they were definitely grifting to an extent. So who knows what the real truth is, but definitely a lot of different people coming in there to throwing it off course, making distractions. And this is the main idea, is that you think something's true, when you try to bring the message there. Well, even if it's true, you have to think that optics actually does matter. To say that optics doesn't matter is stupid. You're trying to convince what you call sheep, right? People who don't think critically. And then you're going to say, well, optics doesn't matter. How does that work? It doesn't work. You have to put yourself in the mind of these sheep. Okay? Most humans are not rational anyways, including us. We live our lives according to a deep meaning, what we get from a story that we're enacting. And it doesn't have to do always with satisfying our individual needs, but that's another subject. So basically there was disillusionment with these organizations, and then some people said, well, let's do our own thing, handing out literature, smaller groups. It was a good idea. I know some of these people, the good people, but it got to groups of 6 to 10, maybe 12, maybe more. I'm not really sure. I haven't gone to all of their things, but they would just go down to a part of the city where there's going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic, where you can hand out pamphlets and maybe get in conversations with some people. And that's been good, and I've done that before. You get positive interactions that way. You get way more exposure to people than necessarily you would get even marching around the city with hundreds of people. You think you're naturally going to get more people on your side just because you have 400 people marching down the street, as opposed to having 12 people in a pedestrian high frequency area approaching people with pamphlets in a friendly manner where you can start a conversation and you're not like shouting slogans. You really think that your big, or even 1,000 people marching down the street is going to be so much more effective? Not necessarily so much more effective. Obviously, it's nice to see, many thousands marching, but we've seen that it doesn't really change anything. It's nice for, keep your community together and wake up some people, but it's not going to wake up the NPCs that we try to talk about. So small gatherings, different part of the city, get the word out, and that's gone well. But unfortunately, you start to get some of these same elements coming to these things. And I attended one of these things 2 weeks ago, down by the waterfront area, and it was good. It was like they had literature for us, so I'm just there to help out. Like, I'm not going to print out your flyers, but if you want me to hand them out and talk to people, I'll do that for you, no problem. So they had literature last time. It was good. We did get some interactions. But they put up all their signs by skateboard area. So far the police, I guess, have let them do it. But the second time I went, the police looked like they were getting close to asking them to leave. I'm not really sure what was going on with that. Just 2 cops, but it was a little weird. That was the second time I went, which was just like less than a week ago. Same area. Except this time they didn't have any literature, so I'm like, well, I'm standing around here. There's not really too much I can do here. And then I noticed that this time, of the signs or the flags they have behind me. Well, first there's a flag it's like the Canadian flag, maple leaf, but then it superimposed literally over the maple leaf, like literally like dominating the flag. It's a Native American looking man, like image, just like superimposed right over that. So I'm just like, should have just smacked my forehead. And then there's a t-shirt, not a full sign or anything, but a t-shirt, like a dark blue or almost black t-shirt hanging on the railing, because there's kind of like a railing they're using there to prop these things up against. And the t-shirt says something, flat earth, something. And then so it's like the first one, the native on the Canadian flag, that was like ding ding, and then this, it's like dong dong. Oh. Yeah, that just about did it for me. And there's another, like the rest of their imagery is just all about like anti-Vaseline, on script, on message. That's ostensibly what they're there for, because, it's not kind of lockdowns anymore, although lockdowns may come back. So the main issue is these forced injections. Okay. So now, regardless of what you think about the native land claims, personally, I think it's hostile to Euro-Canadians. I think it's anti-white. But even if that's what you believe and that's your cause, we've been beset by this distracting issue. It was not part of the original thing. It was not part of the freedom movement. Maybe you can say, oh, vaguely, that's a freedom cause for you. But it just shows how without any unifying culture, these things inevitably will go off the rails. You don't even have a religion tying you together. You don't even have a bloodline tying you together, a common heritage. You don't have that. So of course it's going to start to go off the rails. The flat earth thing, I probably don't believe in flat earth. It doesn't, maybe the earth could be flat. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've met some people who are flat earthers that are all right. But most of the ones I've met, because I have met a number now through these events, and they don't have 2 feet firmly planted on the ground. Like, they're a little spaced out. Their social skills are a little weird. And some of them are extremely obsessive. So they've always been inserting themselves in there, So you could argue that from the perspective of the normies, then that's just going to make it harder for our message to reach them. Now you can go on and on about how I gotta accept the truth of whatever. I don't care. Just have your own event. If you believe so much in it, then don't piggyback. don't. But in their mind, they would probably say that Doug Ford is convinced of the Earth being whatever he knows, or he's trying to. They'd probably make up some story. They'd tie it. They'd relate it all to their cult, because it's clearly a cult now. Even if flat Earth is completely true, sadly, because it's a cult, it's messed up beyond belief. Even cults can have perhaps truth in them. Like I personally don't think the Earth is flat, but who knows? Who knows? I could be wrong. I mean, personally, like Toronto is not very flat. I'm bike all over the city. Practically nothing is flat here. I'm constantly going up and down. So that's just in my own personal life. I've been in an airplane high up. It does look like the Earth is curved. But what can I say? What do I know? What do I know? And by the way, I have a flat Earth on the wall here. See, it's two-dimensional, so it's actually flat. And then the other thing, the native land claim thing, like having that thing on a flag, stupid. I mean, not just, well, it's anti-white. Like I really can't appear in this place anymore. I mean, it's one thing if it's a giant group, but if it's like a small thing, I can't stand around a flag, which is basically the equivalent of the BLM flag. Essentially, that's what it is. And it's funny because these people, whoever has that flag there, I really want to know. Like, see, I would imagine they question what the media tells them, the government tells them about the Vaselines, about C virus, all this stuff. But then, are you also accepting what they're telling you about these mass unmarked graves, so-called? And these so-called abuses in the Indian residential schools. Not that I don't deny that there was some abuse there, but you accept what the media, what their full version of the story is on hand. Because I think a lot of these people they are actually just, oh my goodness, they're going with what the mainstream media is telling them, and they're not making the connection that you're willing to disbelieve on some issues, but then you trust them on other issues. So, but even if it is your thing, even if that is your case, then fine, then just don't piggyback onto this. Or if they do piggyback onto these things, it's just evidence that without a unifying culture, these things are going to fall off the rails. And to have a unifying culture, you need some organization too. So the other thing this demonstrates is because these people that tried to form a break-off thing, and I know some of the people, they're good. There's another thing they do, which I'm going to get to. But they try to have it leaderless. They use the word leaderless. But clearly, because it's leaderless, then anyone can come in and divert your energy and divert your message and dilute your message as well. There's another thing they do. This is important. I probably should have said this at the beginning. Is they shame people. They try to make people feel uncomfortable. I mean, I get it. We live in a snowflake. So, I mean, that's an old meme, but everyone's so soft these days. We can't take any criticism. I get it. There is a place to, push people. But if we want to think about optics and like, what are we really trying to get? What sort of image do we want to put forth here? Naggers on the street, calling people sheep, like, oh, ba sheep. This guy. He's an all right guy. I like this guy. But this time he had a megaphone. This guy likes to go after people a lot, which is, personally, I don't think it's always the best strategy. But he had a megaphone the more recent time I went down there, and so he was saying like, "Oh, are you going to get the third booster shot?" Which is a valid question. That's fine. But then he was like calling people sheep a lot on the megaphone and saying ba ba ba, imitating the voice of a sheep. And I've seen other people do this. He's not the only one. This is actually a somewhat, it is more common than it should be, this attitude. So the funny thing is that we're calling the NPCs sheep. We're calling the stupid masses sheep. And then, so they see us on the street, and who is the one that's actually baaing like a sheep? It's one of our guys with a megaphone. It's one of us. supposedly us. One of us, like literally making sheep sounds. And you're trying to call the NPCs sheep. And you're bawing like a sheep. Like, I get it. You're imitating them. Yeah, I get it. But you think that's the joke? But no, you forgot. You didn't. Your understanding of the joke. You forgot the whole lower, like the foundation level. It's actually the joke's on you. Because you're bawing like a sheep, and you come across as like a sore loser, because your tone is all like, you suck, blah blah blah, and then occasionally you'll get someone who's riled up who'll shout at us, and then the group will shout at that person, and it'll be like almost not a cathartic thing, but something they almost want to do. They almost want to get into that. I resent this. I can't come back to these small gatherings anymore. There's good people there. I'm happy what they're doing, but unfortunately these other elements got in. That's one of the common problems, is just a vetting process. So that was the one thing I wanted to, I should have really mentioned at the beginning, is just the whole attitude of trying to shame people. And then as soon as you try to ask people not to do this, then they say, well, you're controlled opposition, you're a Fed yourself. I think the adage is that the people who end up organizing things and the ones who stand up and hog the limelight are the ones that shouldn't be doing it, and the people that might be more qualified to do it, we don't want to do it. It's a bad situation. I've never wanted to speak at any of these things. Are you kidding me? No way. Look at all the people it attracts, and then they come after you and do all these things. But I want to get the message out there, but we're just looking like complete idiots right now. And we fight amongst ourselves too. I say ourselves. I don't really view myself really as one of them. I've always been on the periphery, kind of. And they don't all fight, but there are certain people that they get into fights with other people, like not one of the so-called protesters or people who come to these gatherings. Or they even get into fights with other people who are supposedly on our side. I've seen this happen numerous times. And often it is like, oh, you shouldn't say that to someone. Oh, don't tell me. You can't tell me how to. That's a common attitude. You can't tell. Who are you to tell me how to do this? Yeah, well, that's because it's all just, there's no leadership structure and there's no respect for any leader. Like, we're irreligious. We're atheistic. We're just coming from some suburban, who knows what background, but just this liberal paradigm that we're coming from. So of course, there's no real built-in organization. It's kind of like we're atomized, and that's foreign to our thinking, and we all just think like freedom, like you can't tell me what to do, and it just spoils it for everyone. And it just looks so like when the police were trying to close in, the two police the other time, and it's like you want to have a unified front at that time, but at that time there was like a dispute going on between two guys in the supposedly anti-Vaseline group, and then the cops are going to have less respect, and they're just going to think like, well, these people are just pathetic. They're even fighting amongst themselves. And lastly, there's this flag that says F Trudeau. It says like F, and then maybe they blot out one letter, but basically, more or less spells out the swear word, the F word, Trudeau. And it's like, I get it, we don't like Trudeau, yeah. It's like, but, who likes any politician, really? Like, are you really surprised? And what sort of image do we want to portray to the public? Does it occur to you that, you see, there's no such thing as like common decency anymore. We just speak in this vulgar language, like if I swear and I cuss, that's going to show how committed I am, and that's really going to resonate with the common person. Yeah, maybe, I guess, or it'll resonate with really people with. If you put dirtiness out there, it's going to resonate with the dirtiness in other people in society. That's what's going to resonate in that kind of vibe. That anger. That Trudeau is obviously evil, but that you would want to focus on some venom on him so much that you would want to make a sign, make a flag. That's like can't you could do it with humor. You could do it something else. You can talk about Trudeau, but just like a swear word on a flag. It's like wonderful, wonderful flag. You got that with the natives superimposed on the maple leaf, anti-white, pretty much. Like, talk about like being tone deaf. Like, what are you talking about? And along with the flat Earth thing, it's just no direction, constant distractions. It's an incoherent message, and it just shows that the freedom movement, whatever you want to call it, because it's become extremely, well, perhaps that is in fact it. It's become diluted. What is the issue anymore? It's the Vaseline issue, but then is it? There's, at what point you could just call it C virus oppression. That kind of captures it, but it can't quite. You're going to lose control of the narrative when you just focus on medical tyranny, because obviously this is a spiritual war. It's not just a medical issue, or even just a governmental issue, or just a corporate issue. It's fundamentally spiritual. But in that light, those among us who are distracting, fighting amongst each other, staying away from script. It needs to be like a grade 5 level simple script, but obviously we can't manage that. We would need to be like in the 1950s. Everyone dresses nicely. Everyone is respectful, but we stand our ground. We're not pussies. And we stay on script, and we don't get drawn into arguments and or needless arguments. Imagine, like, that would scare the crap out of them. 50 of us? If you had 50 Nick Fuentes, if you had like 50 guys, I don't necessarily mean groypers, because I know there's some goofy groypers, and they didn't always do the most optical things, but that sort of spirit of like, you're gonna dress in a suit. If you're, I'm thinking mostly, this would be men. It's men's job to rise up to the occasion like this, and just like 50 guys in public, dressed in suits, expressly for a freedom movement cause. Let's just say that, or let alone like a Canada First sort of message. That would scare the crap. Like, I would almost advise maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to do this, because it might be like painting a target on your back. But it just shows like how touchy the whole issue has become right now. And we live in a time when you can't even say it's okay to be white without that being labeled a hate crime, or you run the risk of that being labeled a hate crime. Just by saying it's okay to be white and putting it on a poster and putting it in public view, that could be a hate crime in today's world. Hasta luego, amigos.